Okay, there we go. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is our fourth Tea-Time CPD session, led by our Leeds schools. And today it's the turn of Jo Wilson-Hunt from Polden School and Phil Hardisty from Westfield Arts College. So these sessions are being delivered on behalf of the Octagon Music Hub and in partnership with Dorset Music Service and Somerset Music Service. So today you've got me, Hannah Reeves from Dorset Music Service here to sort of facilitate the meeting. If you've got any questions as we go along, please do pop them in the chat or pop your hand up and we will get those answered. But we will leave time at the end as well for any questions you would like answered. So the Leeds schools are a group of schools who are working with us across the partnership to support and shape musical delivery in settings across Dorset and Somerset. So these sessions are open to any school in that locality, which is quite a vast locality. So I'm sure you're going to gain loads from this session today about inclusive musical approaches. And I'm going to hand straight over to you, Phil, down in Weymouth.
Thanks very much.
Get the whole screen up for you. Okay, can you see that all right?
Yes, it has. It hasn't gone full screen if you were hoping.
Oh, hasn't it? It has on mine. Let me try again, see if I can get it full screen for you. Right, slideshow.
You might need to press the enable editing to make it do it.
Come on, come on. Apologies. It's not as slick when you've got me helping you with tech. Right, is that any better?
Oh, I haven't got it at all anymore.
Oh, man. Sorry, Phil.
That's all right. Yay!
Yay! We got there eventually. It's a shame it's being recorded, isn't it? I should have got that bit sorted first. Okay, let's pretend that blip didn't happen. Phil, over to you.
Thanks very much. Welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about some inclusive musical approaches, and if you can click onto the next slide, please, Hannah. The aim of today is to encourage and equip you with ideas and resources to create a more inclusive musical environment. So, I mean, yes, we're supposed to be a bit of the experts, but we don't know everything. But the idea is that hopefully through discussion at the end as well, we'll be able to create more inclusive environments for our students at school, whether that's in special education, whether that's in mainstream primary or secondary. And that's the plan. Next slide, please, Hannah. I've never had to say that. That's a bit exciting, isn't it? So today we're going to we'll do a brief introduction of who we are, and then we'll talk a little bit about what inclusion is. And I mean, inclusion's a massive topic. So we're mostly relating this to additional needs in our schools. You know, inclusion could be all sorts of things. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Then we'll talk about, okay, what do we actually do, and some information about what we need to know maybe in order to think more carefully about being inclusive. So we'll look at the Sounds of Intent framework, some challenges that we might face in our schools, and then some ideas, some activities that you might want to take and adapt, some ideas about instruments, and some resources for further reading, and then some time for questions. So over to Jo, please, and the next slide. Thanks, Hannah.
Hi, everyone. So Polden School is based in Bridgewater, and we are an all-age special school. which caters for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. And they're aged between the ages of 4 and 19. So we have quite a wide age range. We came about through the merger of 3 special schools in the Bridgewater area. So we have a very large cohort, I guess, and they are very widespread and the abilities are quite varied. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So our school motto is believe you can, and we have changed quite considerably in the last few years in what we do. We're very, very lucky, as you can see by the picture. We have our own radio station here at the school. At the moment, it is used as a training space. It is not broadcasting. Our plan is that from September, we will also be broadcasting. We have started doing our school musical. Young Lady in Red was in our first school musical. Our third one goes on next week, which includes it's mainly children from the Riverside wing who are year 9 to year 11. We have a music stroke drama suite, which is where I am at this moment in time, which has pianos and many different types of instruments, drum kits, etc. So we have quite a varied spaces that we can use, but we also use music within our classrooms a lot, especially with our younger students. A lot of their now and next is through music. So there may be sounds or it may be songs. So they have the Monday morning song, the Tuesday morning song, the Wednesday morning song. They have different songs about weather that they do in class. They do play instruments, mainly percussion in those classes, but we do have things like open orchestra, and as you can see, we've had visits from musicians in the school from various places around the country who come in, and our students can participate in various different ways. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So our school delivers a rich programme within the arts. We do in-house music lessons through open orchestra. We have singing lessons. They do a lot of dance. They do a lot of drama. It's integral to the learning at all levels, as I just said. It consolidates a lot of the knowledge that the students are doing. So, for instance, today we're doing one of the groups, they're looking at countries, our middle range age group, and one of the classes that I'm working with are looking at Mexico. So today we looked at songs from Mexico, playing instruments that are from that country, playing some of their music, but we also did the Mexican hat dance and things like that. So it's constant. We have a school choir, and alongside our musical, they perform. We have music therapy sessions with a specialist music therapy staff, and we also are engaged with lots of organisations. We've had Opera Project, Open Up Orchestra, Song Story, Bamboozle, Jackdaws, lots of different companies coming in. So they're getting a varied of music being shared with them, alongside them actually taking part in music themselves. So I keep having to move it because I've got the screens up in front of me, and I'm now going to hand you back to Phil.
Thanks. So I work at Westfield Arts College, which is actually, I think, quite similar to Polden Bower in that we're a large school, 230 students, which is quite large for a special school, from 4 to 19. Here's a group of our musicians playing at Bristol Beacon a couple of years ago as part of a big music festival for special schools. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Hannah. So our students have a diagnosis of moderate learning difficulties, most of them. with more than 50% of them being autistic in addition to their learning need. And our classes are smaller than in mainstream, 6 to 14. We have different routes through the school, some who are very, who are kind of maybe working at a key stage behind mainstream school, but our class is kind of safe learners that could just crack on in a specialized environment, and so they'll be in the larger classes. And then there are some more specialist classes for communication or for severe autism and things like that. Our vision is broadening horizons, so encouraging our students to look up and look out at the world and see what's available. And so music is a really big part of that, and it's really valued by our SLT. So I feel for some of you who are in schools where SLT are not so keen on music. Our head and our deputy head are both in the staff band. Our deputy head is a music graduate, so not all special schools have a music teacher, so I work 3 days a week here. So yeah, we're kind of lucky in that respect. We've got 3 aims in our music policy: for our children to become more musical through a kind of progressive curriculum, for them to be exposed to a rich musical landscape that's kind of beyond what they would get at home, so opening their eyes to and opening their ears to different music from around the world, from music from history, from from modern pop music that they wouldn't ordinarily listen to, perhaps. And for all of our students, and this is what's really kind of at the heart of our inclusive approach, is for all of our students to be able to express themselves musically using their voice or instruments or technology, or maybe all of those. Some of our students are pre-verbal, so they're not singers yet, but we want all of our students to be able to express themselves musically. How do we do that? Well, through the curriculum, through one-to-one lessons, through our choir. We've got 2 orchestras. We have workshops coming in. We go out on trips to the BSO concert and things like that. We have our own music festival called Westfest. And then we collaborate with other schools. So we organise the Dorset Special Schools Singing Picnic, where we'll take our choir and go to a cricket pitch in the middle of Dorset, and all the special schools come and we all sing together. And so there's lots of initiatives within the school to create this musical environment. And so all of these things add up to creating an inclusive place where there's something for everyone. Not everything hits everyone, but if there's something for everyone, that's kind of part of inclusion. Next slide, please, Hannah. Joe, over to you.
Sorry, I've got hay fever and it's playing up. So what is inclusion? Putting into practice in the environment that we are in. And similarly to, as Phil has said, we're trying to ensure that our students are included and are getting the option to grow and develop. And through music, this seems to be the way forward. And again, our SLT are extremely supportive of that. We want to make sure that everyone is valued, that every one of them is respected, and that everyone is included, so that it's not a case of you can't do that, because it's you can do it. Let's find the way so that you can participate. And we're going to move on into discussing how Sounds of Intent works for us. And I'm going to pass you back to Phil.
Yeah, you can go straight onto the next slide, actually, Hannah. Thanks. Okay. So as part of kind of our inclusive approach here, it might, and something that you might find really helpful, and you may have heard of Sounds of Intent. They've come out with some qualifications more recently that are kind of backed by Trinity College, and so it's kind of making its breakthrough into mainstream a little bit. Sounds of Intent is a project, initially a research project that started about 25 years ago at Roehampton University, led by Professor Adam Ockleford and a team of other people. And it was really, it came about by trying to track the musical development of children in order to be able to enable musical development in children with special needs. Okay, and so what if you have a look on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see this framework of musical development. And the idea of this is it's got 6 levels, starting from the middle, moving to the outside. And those 6 levels relate to potentially the first 5 years of a kind of neurotypical child's life, going from in the womb and just out of the womb at level 1, where you're encountering sound, where you're accidentally making noises, or you're making noises that relate to life. You know, you're crying, you're babbling, you're accidentally hitting things and it makes a noise, to level 6 on the outside, where you're performing or listening with an understanding of what this music is, how it fits into time and place. You know, you're listening to samba and you know that it's music from Brazil, and you know that samba, you know, people get together and perform samba in carnival and things like that. So so it's a whole range of musical development, and within that you'll see the 3 colors. We've got proactive, the blue; interactive, the green; and reactive, the pink. And that's about these are 3 domains. That's what they're called in Sounds of Intent. The 3 domains. The proactive domain is making the sound yourself, performing, improvising, composing. The interactive is interacting with other people through music. So it's copying, it's having a musical conversation, it's improvising in a jazz quartet, or it's laughing when somebody else laughs. And then the reactive, the pink, is kind of your reaction to having music done to you, if you like. So it's how you listen. It's whether you can recognize patterns. It's whether you can recognize motifs, and listening with an understanding of place and culture and things like that. And why is this important? Well, if we have a look at this, if you look at levels 2, 3, 4, and 5, and these are the kind of 4 levels that are most relevant to us in special schools often, but also, and I've taught in special schools for a long time, but I've also taught a lot in mainstream schools, and there are students in every mainstream primary that I've ever taught at that are at all of these levels. So level 2, a sound maker. They show an awareness of sound and they can make a sound, but can they play in time? No. Can they even play a pattern and keep that pattern going? No, not necessarily. You know, so it's quite useful to kind of think about our students in these levels, who can create a sound. So maybe in a performance, these are our students that are going to be great for creating some sound effects, you know, and you give them an ocean drum and they can create the sound of the sea. But if you ask them to play a more complex part, they might find that really challenging. So we've got sound makers, pattern makers, someone who sits down at the piano and can play every note going all the way up the piano, or someone who can tap 3 times on a drum and then maybe a little bit, or they can keep a steady beat. These are our pattern makers. And then motif makers, these are our children who can maybe keep an ostinato going, right? So they've linked these sounds together and they can play a little pattern, either melodic or rhythmic, you know, it doesn't really matter, you know. And within this, there's a range of pattern makers, you know. And then motif makers. And then music makers, these are children who can sing or play a whole song, and it's gradually getting more in tune and in time. And certainly in a primary school, you've got all of these, right? So even though this was designed for students with special needs, in mainstream, I've encountered all of these people. And then when you come to your performances, it's really useful to think, well, who are my sound makers? Who are my pattern makers? Let's not give those the job of keeping the steady beat for everybody else to stay in time, because it's going to be too tricky. And then you can make an inclusive performance which is meaningful for all the students. So there's a little bit about sounds of intent, which you may or may not have known. Jo, over to you.
So then we look at the challenges, and it's not just challenges for young people with disabilities and learning difficulties. It's also to do with young people who have behavioural challenges, and we talk a lot about the primary ends, but when we get to the secondary end, we also have the situation where cognitively they're very young. Their abilities may be that they can't read yet, but actually they're teenagers, so they're actually enjoying the music that other teenagers enjoy, but don't necessarily understand lyric, etc., etc. But we find that excessive experiences that are age and ability appropriate without costing thousands is a major issue. We can't take our students to see live bands in certain environments. It could be to do with noise levels. It can do to do with accessibility, because, for instance, we go to our local theatre, and it's a state-of-the-art theatre, so it's got access, but a lot of theatres don't have particularly good wheelchair access, for instance, and you are limited on how many seats there are available. So if you've got a class that's got 10 young people who are wheelchair users, you might find that there's only 5 seats that they would be able to access. Transport can also be a major issue when you are transporting students. We can't just all jump on a coach. It doesn't work that way. We have to think that through. So it's a challenge when we're wanting students to be able to go out and experience live music. Parental support and engagement when out of school hours is also a challenge. A lot of it is to do, again, with transport. Also, parents are concerned about their children being out later in the evenings, and those kinds of things are quite hard. But it can just be in the classroom too. The challenges can be transitioning into the room, actually walking down a corridor and walking into the room where the musical instruments are, or walking into the hall where there is a band about to play, or coming into the choir because of noise levels or larger groups of people. It can actually be really, really difficult for that part of the transition, going into an environment, to actually be able to take part in something, although deep down they really want to take part. And it's finding ways that they can actually take part without those challenges hampering that. That makes sense. We also have the issue that if it's not going right, we might dysregulate, and we have a lot of breakages. So, and as we all know, musical instruments are not cheap. And if you are not playing your guitar, it's not working the way you want to, and you dysregulate, you might smash it to pieces. And it does happen. We have many drums with holes in them that have had to be repaired, etc. And it can be something really, really minor. So those can, to us, but to them it's huge. So those challenges are quite detrimental to some of the work that we do. You may be finding that it's in mainstream as well, that these things are there. And we all know that, you know, going out and about has become more and more expensive. And we want to be able to have our students being able to go out and experience all the wonderful musical things that are available to them. But it might not always happen in the same way as it happens for a mainstream student. So we're going to move on to actually now look at the challenges for all our schools. So there's a wide range of abilities within classes. We know that. We also have the same. Our classes are not all the students the same. They're all different. There's a significant number of students with additional needs in mainstream settings now who may need the support in a different way. We can't just expect them to be able to go into a music room and be able to take part in the same way everybody else does. And it's no point in just giving them earphones, because then the noise is too much. It can have lots of other areas. It can be to do with how things move, or not having the item just for themselves and having to share. These can be in mainstream or in special needs settings that students struggle with this. Their students have such diverse sensory profiles. Music can be totally overwhelming. It can be overstimulating. They're absolutely loving it, but it's actually so overstimulating that it has to be brought down and made smaller so that they can actually access it without it becoming just too much. And also the attitudes to music by staff and students. Music to some can, as we know, can be like the be all and end all, but it can also be something quite frightening. We have a number of students who find music quite frightening. I used to work in our PRU, and I know there were students there who actually found music, unless it was what they wanted to listen to, quite frightening. They didn't understand it. So these are areas that are challenges, not only for us, but the inclusiveness of music. We need to take that into consideration.
Great, thanks, Jo.
And I'll move on to Phil again.
So, so bearing all that in mind, well, what are we going to do? So, first of all, and this may or may not be, you know, all of these may or may not be applicable to you, but some of them hopefully will give you food for thought. Not for our Key Stage 3 and 4 learners, but for lots of our learners, we'll start every session with a hello song and we'll finish with a goodbye song. You know, routines are so important. They're so important for children with additional needs, but they're actually, what's good for those with special needs is good for everyone pretty much all the time. So, so starting with a consistent welcome, whether it's a hello, whether it's listening to a piece of the week, whether it's, you know, a do it now activity or whatever it might be, but having that consistency is really, really useful. For almost all of our lessons, even with the older learners, we have a visual timetable, which will look something like this. And at the beginning of the lesson, we'll talk it through. At the beginning, we're going to sing our hello song. Then we'll do a warm up. Then we're going to play the big drum, right? And so on. And some students just find not knowing what's coming next so distracting that they can't focus on what's happening now. So just being able to know what's coming next can just reduce their anxiety levels, and then they can engage in the lesson. So having a visual timetable is really important. I mean, so many primary schools do this now in mainstream. If you're not doing it, give it a try. You know, try it for your day. And similarly, now and next, if you know, with particular children, you might have a now and next board. Now it's music, next it's break time. You know, now it's playing the drum, next it's singing a song. Just as Jo was talking there, considering arousal and regulation levels. So some children find music really stimulating. So you've got to think about volume levels in the room. Is it always loud? If it's always loud, it's probably too much. So, you know, consider in your plan, okay, well, we're coming in and it's calm, and then we're going to do something that's a bit loud. So then we need to have something that's regulating afterwards. For example, body percussion. Just do this. Just right now. It's really regulating. It calms you down, just tapping on your chest a few times. So So maybe use some body percussion as a regulating activity. Inspire Works created an amazing recovery curriculum after lockdown, which was really, really useful. I used it in lots of mainstream primaries. And so body percussion, movement to music, you know, children find, I'm sure you don't just have them sitting down for an hour, but, you know, get up and move to the beat, feeling the beat, you know, experiencing the beat rather than just hearing it and trying to identify it is really powerful. Okay, I'm going to move on to low threshold, high ceiling. When someone told me about this, I was like, oh, this is such a great idea. Okay, I need an activity that is really accessible to everybody, but is not limiting for my high ability students. So how do I do this? Well, there was an amazing song I found on the BBC, and it's just 2 chords, and it's a man singing, and then everybody copies, and then he sings again, and everybody copies, and then what I've done is I've adapted this, and after I've done some copying, I'll get a student up, and they'll make a sound. They might just roar like a dinosaur, and everybody copies, or they might sing something using the scale of the chords that I'm playing, and everybody copies. And so this is just an example of a low threshold, high ceiling activity where every student can engage at their level. It's not different for my lowest ability child who can tap on the floor, or one of our students, just he's obsessed with the first phoneme in his name, so he just goes buh every time that we do this song. But you could do that in year 13 and it would be no problem in an A-level group, because there is no ceiling to it. Copy me, copy you. So that there's an example. Musical conversations. So I might give my students 2 notes. We've been doing these musical conversations all term. So they might have 2 notes. They've got so and me, and then they've got 2 boomwhackers each, and they have a conversation. And then the next person goes. I mean, we've done lots of rhythm work to build up to this point, right? And it might not sound like that, but you can have a musical conversation. Then one person can just, if they want, if that's what they've got to say, someone else can play something really rhythmic. So there's no ceiling to that, even on 2 notes, you know. And obviously you could incorporate more. You could do it at a piano, or you could do it at a xylophone or something. Student-led compositions, you know, if a student's composing, you might give them some starting blocks, but you know, there's no end to what they might come up with. Composer's notebook. This is something I heard about, where you come across a composer's notebook, and in it are different ideas. So maybe there's a chord progression, or maybe there's a rhythmic figure, and you give that notebook to the child, to the group, or whoever, however you're doing it, and you say, I wonder what they were going to come up with. And then they can take that. They might just play that rhythm 4 times, and that might be all they can do. Or they might take the idea of the instruments and play those instruments, or they might make a whole, you know, there is no limit. So this idea of low threshold, high ceiling, I try and, you know, not every activity can be like that, but just the idea of it gets you thinking, okay, well, what can I do that's going to enable all my learners to progress? Self-directed learning, you know, I might have four sheets that the students are practicing. So I've got a group learning ukulele, and there might be the easiest chord progression, and then the next one and the next one, and they're working through these, and they can just come and get the sheets, and then once they've practiced that and they're sure they can move on, then they just move on to the next one, and then they're assessing themselves. And student voice, if you want to make an inclusive musical environment, You want the students to be engaged in the music that they're playing. So asking them for recommendations, for songs to sing, whether it's from a bank of songs you've taught them, or whether it's something that then you're going to have to go and arrange potentially, that may or may not be within your skill set. But yeah, engaging with the students so that they have some agency in the learning. So there's some ideas for inclusive activities. Jo.
So when it comes down to being inclusive, we have to look at the instruments that we're using. So we have the usual kinds of instruments that we would have in any music room, pianos and drums and guitars, but not all students can access those. Something they all can access, which Phil has just demonstrated, are boom whackers. I'm sure that you've all come across boom whackers. I've discovered that here all our students love playing with the boom whackers. Some will want to make their own tunes. Some like to use the YouTube videos, and they can follow the beat. When we first started, when I first started with the students here, I noticed that most of them, they found following a beat quite difficult. The boom whackers have really helped them find a way of making music, but also they're starting to understand beat and how they can actually create music. So it actually sounds like a tune, not just something being bashed. Although we always do have the moment when you get hold of your boom whacker and you just beat the floor. The ocean drum, my colleague, music therapist, uses the ocean drum a lot, and it can be used for sound effects, etc. as well. Tambourines and shakers, all our students can access to a certain degree. Tambourines and shakers. We have some students who actually, that is one of the ways they actually communicate with us. They will actually, when they want something, they will shake their shaker or their bell or whatever that they got, so that they can communicate with us. Body percussion, again, it's really good for regulating, but it's also a really good way to actually be able to feel the beat. But we need to consider, quite rightly, as Phil said, who is playing what. It's all very well to go, well, they love to play the drum, but if they can't keep that beat, and they're in a group playing a musical instrument. So it's worth thinking about who plays what at what time. Earlier on today, I actually gave some claves to one of the students. We were doing a piece on the screen with the boom whackers, but there was also claves, and I realized, because he asked for the claves, and I realized he couldn't keep the beat, and he went back to using the boom whacker without much encouragement, because he realized it wasn't working for him at all. So it's considering what they're doing, and let them have a go. That's not a problem at all, because it's inclusivity. But it's like students wanting to play the guitar, but they don't know what to do with it. It just looks interesting, so it's showing basics. Lots of sensory feedback. Example, the kabasa, so they've got lots of the sensory, the feeling of the actual instrument, of the vibrations. We do have students who have they have hearing difficulties, and it's actually going to be being able to feel that rhythm and the feel through the instrument. But it can also be for a student who has sight impairment. It works really well. I have actually worked with a student who could not hear and could not see, and then one way to actually get him to be able to engage with the music was actually using cymbals, because he could feel the rhythm through the cymbals. Clarion, we use clarion a lot. One of our open orchestra sessions is just using clarion, and then incorporating musical instruments within using clarion alongside. And then we've also got the adaptations of one-handed musical instruments. And I have here's one we made earlier. I didn't, obviously. This is by Percussion Plus. So if we have a student, I don't know if you can see that. I'll just take my camera so you can see that a bit more. So on here, we've got different instruments held together. So a student who has only got one hand can and get involved with the instrument and be part of it without having to hold the instrument. It can sit on a table. You might also have a student who has real limited mobility and they can still be taking part. We have chime bells. We have a young lady in our open orchestra. She plays the chime bells and a drum. We have it close enough so she's able to actually participate in the lesson. And she's been in the open orchestra a number of years, but she can play. She's got really good rhythm, but she's able to play and participate. And we have ones of those with tambourines and things like that on as well. I think it's on to our next slide.
Yeah, just while we're on clarion, actually, I don't know if everyone's seen the clarion. Clarion's an iPad-based instrument, and there's access to it through Dorset Music Service. I'm guessing through the hub. I'll just show you how we use it, because you can use it in all sorts of ways. But we've got one student who's got only the use of one hand in ukulele, and so what I've done is I've set up. You can create your own patterns of instruments, of notes. So I've set up the open strings on a ukulele, and you can strum it, right? And if you go to the top, it's louder, and it's softer at the bottom. And then as we've moved on to chords, I've created in here the C chord and the F chord. So when we're playing those 2 chord songs, for example, at Christmas we did that, then she could strum in time with the rest of the class. And then we added A minor, and then we've added G, and so she can then, it's still challenging for her to play, but it's accessible because she's got to select the right chord and play it at the right time and try and play it at the right volume. So there's an idea of how you could use the clarion. It comes with some preloaded things, but it's really flexible. So definitely worth it if you've got children who maybe, and if you're doing ukulele, I taught ukulele in year 4 for ages in mainstream primary, and for some it was just really, really hard. They weren't quite able to access it yet. This might be quite a good option.
And there's lots of different instruments within clarion, isn't there?
Yes, yeah, loads of sounds. Yeah, so that's kind of the closest to the ukulele, but yeah.
So you've got a lot more choice.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's really good. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to do this. We don't need to do the next 2 slides, so we'll just do this and then we'll finish. So inclusive resources. If you want more information on Sounds of Intent, soundsofintent.org, and then it's got links to loads of other good sites. And the sound maker, pattern maker, motif maker, music maker labels come from Count Me In, which is another kind of side of Sounds of Intent. And Count Me In has got loads of, it's got a whole book of songs with ideas for all of those different levels. So if you want resources, go to that. If you go to BBC 10 Pieces, there is notation and clarion accessible parts for some of their pieces. So worth looking at that. And they use adapted notation, so they've got some chroma note notation, so that's kind of following the boom whacker colors, and they've got some figure note notation as well. Figure notes is another notation system which is more advanced than just red and orange dots on a page like boom whacker notation, but it's quite difficult to read. so it's quite a high bar to get into, but it's because it's more flexible in the long run. So figure notes is another notation system. Chrome Music Lab, if you've never looked at Chrome Music Lab, just type it into Google and go on there and you'll have the best hour. your life. And then iPad instruments, clarion we've looked at, thumb jam is another one, body percussion, Inspireworks. If you look at that, you can find maybe a link to the recovery curriculum, or you may need to email them, but definitely get in touch with them. And then Music Mark got loads of webinars about inclusion as well, because we've run out of time. Yeah, any questions?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, thank you so much. You covered so much in that short period of time. It was like jam-packed with information. So thank you. I mean, I could definitely listen to you two talk all day. It was wonderful. One of the things I actually really loved was both of your school mottos of believe you can and broadening horizons, because isn't that what we want for like all of our pupils on their
Absolutely.
musical journeys? It really just chimed with sort of how musically inclusive we can be. And also the way you talk about your students is just fantastically inclusive. You know, they're not singers yet. They will be, but
Yes.
they're not yet. It was brilliant. So thank you. We've talked a little bit about, you know, obviously you're very lucky because you've got your SLTs on board with you. Have you got, as a final thing, like a top tip on how you can encourage your SLTs to sort of embrace inclusive music making in your schools?
Yeah, well, I mean, partly it's part of the new music. Oh, what's it called? You know, it's you know, Ofsted are going to be looking at that. So, you know, just bring out the O word. Like they need to see that you're creating an inclusive environment, and that, you know, so if nothing else works, go with that. But it's so good for our children's regulation. We've got some children who really struggle with school, you know, at our place, and I would not know that. And that's not because of me, it's just because of music. You know, they come in here and they're different. And I think that's just, you know, something we need to be saying. You know, the difference in some of our children. You know, the music room is like a sanctuary, isn't it, for some schools? So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say from our point of view, I mean, we're Bridgewater, you know, we're the home of carnival, so music and theatre is a major area for Bridgewater. But I would say it's about being able to be part of the community. Music brings communities together. So our SLT are very much, we want to be part of the community, and this is the way to be part of the community. And we are becoming, Polden Bio was, people didn't know who we were. They're starting to, because we're out there and we're being loud.
Go for it. Keep being loud. We like
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I don't think there's any other questions from what I can see. So yeah, once again, a really big thank you. There's a few thank yous in the chat as well. So thanks for those. Yes, we will send the PowerPoints out to you. And this session has been recorded as well. So that will be shared on the Octagon Music Hub YouTube channel. So we will send you a link to that as well. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can go and relax and have a nice cup of tea and probably plan for another 10 lessons tomorrow. But thanks so much, you two. It's been wonderful.
You're welcome.
And we
You're welcome.
look forward to hearing more from you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.